At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why, since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and it's May 11th. We are marching closer and closer to Dare to Be Great 3, the final Dare to Be Great virtual conference. This is going to complete the trilogy of greatness. It's going to be amazing. I've been working on virtual events nonstop, like back to back for the last few weeks, last month, couple of months, I don't know, something like that. As you can see, I'm kind of out of it, but there's a lot of stuff that's been going on, a lot of good stuff that's coming up, and there's also national conferences that are going to be coming up that I'll be at as well. It's going to be weird getting back in there. I'm not sure how much people will actually be there. I know that there's a lot of agencies that still have kind of a strict travel policy, because you don't want somebody going out, getting sick, coming back, and possibly getting everybody else sick. So I'm not sure how many people will be there. It sounds like attendance is going to be pretty good, but I'm excited to see all of you. And I've got Imagine Listening for National NINA that's going to be in Columbus, Ohio. So that'll be good. If you're going to be there, please come out to my Imagine Listening session. It's going to be a lot of fun. There are more things coming for patrons as well. As I wrap up all of these virtual events, I will have so much more time to be putting stuff out there for patrons. So thank you all so very much for hanging in there and having patience. I appreciate it more than you know. And I'm excited for my guest today. I'm trying to think now, how long was it? About a month or so ago? I can't even think now. Yeah, it was almost a month ago, because it was April 14th. My birthday is this Friday. So it's almost a month ago now that we had the live virtual conference for Kansas APCO. So this was their MC. My guest today was their MC, and we had a lot of fun. So I'm excited to have her on. And my guest today is Kelly. She's the CTO out of Jefferson County 911 Communications in Kansas.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Woo!
Dude, we had a lot of fun.
Why is it on a day like this I gotta have a bad look at this? It
it looks all right.
And then my camera's backwards, so I don't even know which way it goes.
You were saying that in the beginning when you're like,
Oh,
wait,
here we
it's
go.
backwards. Oh, that's funny. I
All
mean,
right.
you could have busted out some like Aquanet and just
I
made it go
tried.
all the way up.
Now it's glued this way.
You could have done
Oh,
some.
wrong way again.
You
See, all
could
right. Anyways, sorry people. You're just gonna have to stare at my bad do.
You could have done some like flock of seagull shit or something. That could have been all right.
Ew, God, no. Oh, that's awful.
So we had a lot of fun.
We did.
It was awesome. I remember kind of the build up to the actual conference, you know, the meetings that we were having. I remember the first meeting actually when they said that you were going to be the MC. You're like, oh, okay, you're just all right.
Yeah. I did a lot of eye rolling. I was like, seriously, what is this? Why?
They just completely hit you with it, and you're just
yeah, they threw it at me for sure.
But you did great. We were there. We got on, and you know you were talking just fine. I remember you were saying you were like kind of. I was like, you kind of nervous or what's going on? But
yeah, I was nervous. I felt like I was going to throw up, and then after 10 minutes, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, we're just talking, talking to people.
That's all we're doing.
And then a couple of those times we're in the green room and we're singing.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
so
even
much
more fun. Yes. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on, a lot of amazing speakers, and you know, the conference went great. There are people who have been registering since it finished.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's
Right
still
on.
going and going, man. It's been really well.
You had a lot to do with that, so thank you for making it so comfortable and fun, and yeah, it all went very smooth. So
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Having Leah there in the background to
absolutely
to listen to some of the audio as well, and then we took that selfie, and then she's like took
That's
one
literally
with us.
one of my favorite pictures. It was so cute.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, that was for those who are listening, if you did not get a chance to check out the Kansas APCO conference, make sure to do so. And you can go to their website, you can go to their social media. The registration is still open. It's always going to be open, and you can go back and watch it as many times as you want.
Yes.
It was excellent. So before we get into you know, learning more about you and your dispatching career and everything, I want to talk a little bit really quick. You know, when we jumped on, you had your kids who were just leaving and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny how, you know, sometimes the situations and everything, like with our kids, it's like, dude, you just gotta listen, and then, you know, things will be more smooth, or you gotta tell me certain things and things will be more smooth. You know, for example, you know, my son he's 17 and he's a junior. He in just a few weeks he's going to be done, and he's going to be going, you know, it'll be senior year time. We're going to be doing all this other preparation. But about a week or so ago, his girlfriend is here, and she's talking about prom, and we're like, what? And he goes, oh. he forgot to tell us. So I'm, you know, I end up rushing and scrambling and stuff to take him to go find a suit and everything, but he's like almost 6'1" and just limbs, you know, he's like a giraffe.
No.
So it's kind of hard to find, you know, I mean, the top of course is a little easier, but like for his pants, dude, like that was a bit harder. So, you know, I take him to go look, and we're trying stuff on, and I'm like, this will be what you're looking for, because they went all like blacked out and stuff, and so it looks slick.
Yeah.
But I'm telling him, he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can pull this off. And I was like, dude, you're fine. You can do it. I said, and he goes, well, you're able to wear stuff because, you know, you look cool when you wear stuff. You're able to pull it off. I was like, I probably look like a dork, but I just don't care what people think. But it's those things, you know, sometimes, and I don't know how you are with your kids, but it's those things sometimes where they don't tell you, and you're like, you have to tell me these things.
Oh yeah.
I can only follow so much of what's going on, but if you don't tell me, then I don't know, and then you're you're going to be left out in the cold.
Yeah. It's a boom, boom, boom on your bedroom door at like 10:30 at night. And it's my 14-year-old standing there all shadowed out. I have a project that's due tomorrow morning. And I need all kinds of miniatures that I need to super glue to the bottom of a pan. Get out of here. Close my door. I don't care if you fail at this point.
Right. Yeah. Because there's no communication. And, sometimes sometimes it works the same at work, right?
Yeah. Oh, God. We're supposed to be professionals, and really we fucking suck.
Right. Yeah. I say it all the time. It's like we are amazing at our job.
Mm-hmm.
Gold. Communications, we got this. But when we communicate with each other,
totally different language.
Right. Yeah. And that's not just that's not for like work stuff. That's just us talking, us talking with each other and stuff. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to know if you don't tell me, that there's this issue that's going on, or if you think this should be done, or you might have a suggestion. You got to tell me, it's stuff like that is what I'm talking about. Not the work stuff. The work stuff is like a well-oiled machine. Everything, even if, we're, and people say we're like a dysfunctional family, right? Sometimes we don't get along, but when the shit hits the fan, like we're there and we're working and everything is going very smooth. And then after that, you're like, you ate my sandwich out of the refrigerator, damn it.
That's the other part of parenting.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Man, that's hilarious. So, as we're getting into this and everything and kind of segueing more into work as well, how did you get into public safety to begin with? Like, do you come from public safety, like a family of public safety? You just kind of jump in?
No, I literally jumped in. So okay, let me start over. Most of my jobs that I had prior to being a dispatcher, I was a gas station clerk. And I loved it. I had my regulars. I liked the hustle, the bustle of it, and the busyness. And I managed quite a few of them in Lawrence when I first moved to Kansas about 19 years ago. And bought a house out in Ozaki, which is the county in which I dispatch in. And there was a lady who was a dispatcher where I dispatch now, who was a regular at Casey's gas station. And she would come in, it's going to sound terrible, but she'd come in and she'd buy a 6-pack every day.
Oh.
And she would she'd throw it up on the counter and be like, rah. I'm like, wow, dang, what does she do for a living? Right. And really, it just started with small conversation. And I think one day I asked her, I don't know how it came up, but I had just, she had brought up the fact that she was a 911 dispatcher and she had a really bad day that day. I think she took a call where a 14-year-old had hung himself.
Oh, man.
And I said, well, are you guys hiring? And she just looked at me like, are you kidding me right now? And I was like, man, I've always wanted to be a dispatcher. And it's going to sound so cliche, but I'm an 80s kid. And so that's when cops came out, Rescue 911.
Yes.
All of this like live real stuff. They didn't have that in the 70s. And so it was all new to everyone. It was like super awesome, right? Like sit there and watch Cops on a Monday night. I think it was Monday Night Cops at 8 p.m. And you were like eating your TV dinners.
Right.
And I just remember watching Rescue 911 and I thought how cool that would be to be the one taking the actual call. Because I am very queasy when it comes to actual blood, broken bones. So I knew I couldn't do the in-person stuff. I never had the desire to be a nurse, a doctor, or EMS paramedic. Definitely not a cop. Yeah. So that's kind of where it all started. And I applied and I was a volunteer firefighter, if that's what you want to call it. I didn't do anything on the fire department. And I got in the door. So,
man,
I know
it's interesting how she comes in a regular and right away you notice too, you're like, damn, like, because their reaction is they plop the 6-pack on there. And do you remember what kind it was? I don't know why, but for whatever reason, all I can see is like Milwaukee's Best.
It was actually Michelob Ultra.
Oh.
She was watching her carbs.
Not, oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. Can't go for the full flavor, yo.
Yeah, exactly.
But but also, her, saying that what happened, and you immediately not cringing, not going, oh, are you hiring?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Not many people, I don't think, not many people would be able to hear a story like that, even just a glimpse of it, and immediately say that, like,
Yeah.
"Are you guys hiring?" And you can imagine her response as well, like, "Are you messing with me?"
Yeah.
Like, "No, I'm serious.
And
Like, this is something
I
I would want to
really
get into."
right. And I don't think at the time I really put my empathy into it either because I was pretty young still. I was only
Mhm,
26 when I started. I may have been yeah. Well, I don't know how old I was, 24 or something around there.
mhm.
I don't really think that I put my whole self into that
Yeah.
position before saying, "Oh, that sounds cool," and then applied, but
Right.
yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah,
not cool.
yeah, because you don't know, exactly what to think or anything. It sounds, it's it's gonna sound funny to say, but it's almost, not so much glamorized, but it's something that you just really don't hear about, right? It's
Mhm.
stuff that you see only on TV, or in movies or anything like that. So when you hear about it, you're like, "Oh, I might wanna do that,"
Mhm.
without thinking about the other part because you haven't gotten into the thick of it yet, right?
Right.
So, and we kind of have the same background a little bit in a way. I was a gas station attendant as well in Michigan, and I worked, they had a little pizza place there, and I worked both sides. And so this was, oh man, I don't know, it was about 4 or 5 years prior to going into dispatch. But yeah, so we have kind of a similar spot there. But so you end up doing that. You end up going to apply. What was that process like? Did you get to do a sit along or anything to see what it was like first?
Mm-mm. No,
Oh
I
shit, you just
apply
jumped
yeah,
in.
yeah,
You really
I
jumped in.
applied, I didn't hear back,
Mhm.
and so I kept calling, I was one of those annoying ones, "Hey, it's Kelly, hey, blah, blah, hey, So finally, she, brings me in for an interview,
Mhm.
and it was a room of 3 people, it was her, her deputy okay, the deputy director, and then who you would call they had two deputy directors for some reason, but she focused more on like the GIS side of things, so the mapping and stuff. That's like a full-time job, really.
Right.
So, yeah, and then it was just a series of questions, and so it was very personable. I applied at a okay, so kind of jumping off the path here.
Mhm.
I hit a really bad burnout where I was at about 5 years into it. And
Mhm.
so I applied for a different 911 position at a different county. And that hiring process was insane. And I was like, oh my, I failed it miserably. And I was a decent dispatcher. So
Yeah.
I was like, I think I'll stay where I'm at. I was pretty mad. But yeah, it was a very personal interview process, just random questions and stuff like that. So.
Were they firing back and forth? And you're just like answering and answering as it's going on?
Nope, I had the main lady, director lady at the time, very sweet and soft spoken and blah 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 blah. And then the rest of them were like,
Oh man.
right, yeah, they were like noting all my answers. I'm like, oh shit, okay, well, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but here we are.
So the reason I ask is because when I had my very first interview, this was in Florida. This is when I very first started my dispatching career. I'm sitting in there, small police department, but I'm sitting in there with the chief and the lieutenant, and excuse me, it's me right on with the chief, and to the side is the lieutenant, and he's actually writing stuff down every so often, but the chief is asking a question, and then he's building onto it and firing at me, and we're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Oh man.
And thinking about it later, I came to the realization that the reason they were doing that is to see how I was going to react, to
Mm,
see if I could handle the pressure of them bombarding me with all of these questions and how I would be able to think on my feet. And man, I thought I was the shit. I thought I was doing good. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm firing back and forth with you. And yeah, then I didn't hear from them for like 2 months, and I thought I screwed the pooch. But the chief shows up out of nowhere one day and asks if I want the job still, and I said I didn't think I got the job. I thought I did bad in the interview or something. And he goes, no, it's just a lengthy um background check that we have to do. That's why it took so long. And I said, well, when do I start? Like next week? And he goes, you start tonight. I was like, oh.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, I worked midnight shift the first night.
Ah,
It was crazy.
that's rotten.
Yeah.
They were desperate then.
Yeah, and even so, being a small police department, they brought me in, and that first night I watched my trainer after he showed me everything, he he takes his first 911 call, then looks at me and says that it's my turn. I'm like, all right.
All right, here we go.
I know. Yeah, it was. I mean, I ended up going to a 40-hour like beginners training a few weeks later.
Oh,
But before that, it was me already taking calls and learning the ropes and stuff and trying to just jump right into it, getting thrown to the lions. Now, so for you, you get in there and everyone is writing this stuff down and you're kind of like, oh shit, what's going on here?
yeah.
How long did it take before you found out that you actually got the job?
I don't really remember. That was 14 and a half years ago. It was probably just a few days that
Mhm.
she called me back. I remember them giving me a pamphlet, and she said, just do me a favor and look over this and talk with it with your spouse, talk over it with your spouse,
Mhm.
because this job has a tendency to change you, and the hours are long and the weekends, and we would just want to be sure that you guys know what all it entails.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you still have that pamphlet?
Probably not that exact one.
Well, it just sounds interesting. It's like, here's a pamphlet.
Mhm.
And like the pamphlet says
Beware.
dispatch will change you.
Caution. Caution. Turn
Yeah,
back now. You have choices.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't go home and discuss it. It was obvious. I wanted the job. I wanted to
Mhm.
do it, and I wanted to kick ass at it.
That's awesome. It is.
Yeah.
It's actually awesome too, though, that they had information like that to be
Mhm.
able to give you, because a lot of times, people they don't express that part. They don't say, "Hey, I just want you to know that there might be some times where, or a lot of times where you're not going to see your family.
Right.
There's a lot of work here. There's a lot of overtime, the stress, just everything." So I have to give them some props for having whatever pamphlet to say,
Yeah,
here
me
you go,
too.
read this over.
Me too.
Yeah. So you walk in there, and do you remember what that was like in the beginning to walk in? Because you hadn't had a sit along or anything like that. So when you walk in, was it overwhelming at all, or was it like, oh hell yeah?
Okay, so their training process was a lot different than our normal, what I say our as the state of Kansas,
Hmm.
because a lot of people do get thrown on the radio and trained as you go on the radio. The process that they had set up at the time, it was broken down into sections. I was to learn the map. I
Hmm.
was to learn law enforcement. I was to learn fire. And then if they thought I was suitable and was going to stay around, then they would send me off to EMD, which is a 3-day course for medical dispatching.
Hmm.
And then you become certified for that. And then they put you on the radio with a trainer behind you, coaching you along the way. So I wasn't thrown into anything. In fact, I was getting really frustrated with my training process, because if I were to get on the radio and start covering shifts, that means the rest of the veterans there wouldn't have overtime, and they didn't want me taking their money. So they kept me off the radio for several months. I just remember being in training forever, and I'm like, come on, let's move forward with this. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was almost too long.
Oh yeah. You want to
Honestly.
jump in. You're learning all this stuff. You
You
want to
do.
apply it.
Yeah, and so much of our job is hands-on.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you could tell me all day long to push this button, but until I push that button, it's not going to register up here. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then when you go to do so, you're like, wait, is this the button?
yeah, what button did you push to get to that?
It's like the big red one right there. Like, oh, okay. 10-4.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so where you're at then, what disciplines of public safety do you do? Do you do all of them? Like,
Yep.
answering calls and everything?
Yep.
Everything? Okay.
Our dispatch center is 2 full-time dispatchers,
Mhm.
and one is what you would designate sheriff side, and then the other side is your 911, which is your fire EMS. And that's the way it's been set up. My 14 and a half years there, so we've just kept it that way.
Nice.
Yeah, every call you take, you start to finish on you. So when it comes to multitasking, we are badass.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. We don't
It's-
designate any of our duties.
It's especially if you're taking a call, that's this would happen all the time. It would be shift change
Mhm.
and someone would walk up and I would have maybe a split second, depending on the call, to either, cover it or mute at least so that I can keep hearing and say, this is what I got going on and say all this other stuff. And a few times they would say, all right, well, I'll go ahead and take it. I'm like, no, no, you're not. I started the call. Like, I can't let somebody
Yeah.
else finish it. Like, I have to go through with this, especially, you develop that, even in that short amount of time on a phone call, you develop that trust with the caller. They're trusting in you. If that voice changes, you kind of lose it a little bit, and depending on the person, of course, but a lot of times, or the way it has seemed is, when you switch from a voice that you've been really connecting with, things kind of get, mixed up there. So for
It's very
myself,
true. Yeah.
when I would take those calls, I'd be like, nope, you can step aside. I'm going to finish this call. I
Mhm.
don't care if I'm here, an hour later or whatever. I'm going to finish this call.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of your earlier calls?
Oh yeah. There were some, when I went to EMD, and when you come back from EMD, they're like, okay, that's it. You passed. Let's get you on fireside, because they want you to get over that initial body sweats and adrenaline rush of answering a 911 call.
Mm-hmm.
And my very first 911 call was a cardiac arrest. And I thought, fuck my life. Like,
oh, dude.
and that's pretty much how the first 9 years of my career went.
Are you the shit magnet?
Well, kind of. I mean, there's one there now she's just had her ass pounded.
Oh man.
Her entire career with huge calls, huge. I was mediocre. Right now I'm the white cloud, and I'm knocking on wood right now. Hear that?
Yeah.
I'm knocking on, I'm the white cloud right now. So I like to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I feel like I've earned it after all these years. Just leave me alone.
Oh man. So
yeah.
Okay, so that first one, comes in. You've gone through this training, and
Right.
you've got your, your certification, your emergency medical dispatch certification, and all, and you jump on, and it's a cardiac arrest. To
Yep.
start out with a medical, that oh man, that's because a lot of for those who are watching and listening, there's so much stuff that you can and some that you can't even imagine that come into 911, and when it comes to medicals, whether it be, someone who woke up and their spouse is not breathing next to them in bed, or it's a child who's choking, or it's a cardiac arrest, it doesn't get, how do I say? I was going to say it doesn't get easier. I mean, it kind of does, because you get used to the incident types, I guess, but the situation is always different. The more you deal with, I guess, the easier it is to come in, but it's always that first initial shock, when you hear someone screaming and they're not breathing or whichever, and then you jump right into it. So that's your first call. How are you processing that afterward? Do you get a chance to, because there's only two of you on, right?
Yeah.
So do you get a chance to take a breather, or
No.
you just jump right in to the next one?
jump right into the next one. Of course, I still have my trainer behind me too. So it was, you could have done this better. You could have done that better. You should have done this. You should have done that. And it's like, fuck, I suck. but, but over time, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I probably have a unhealthy coping mechanism called disassociation. And after working there so many years, and I'm a very empathetic person.
Mhm.
I cannot go to weddings, funerals, watch movies without just crying like a baby. But you get me a call where now I have to, work and I have a job to do. I have really mastered okay, we're disconnecting from this completely. And you got to be careful. You got to leave that shit at home, because if you take it home, you're going to ruin very important relationships to you. So
Yeah, and it's a hard thing, right? Because,
It is.
when people are calling in to 911, you're the one who's supposed to be focused and everything.
Mhm.
And we are empaths. That's why we're so good at the job that we do. But it's in the back of our heads where we're having those same emotions as the caller. But at the time when you're talking, they'll never hear that. They won't know that that's what's going on. And sometimes, with some calls, some of it comes out a little bit. If someone was crying on the phone with me, I wouldn't cry with them, but I would, some of those emotions would come out a little bit to be able to relate,
Mhm.
so that the person could trust me even more as we're talking on the phone, because I want them to feel comfortable. I don't want somebody to call and have someone who's cold and then just like not want to call again or have a bad idea of what dispatchers are like.
Right. Exactly.
um and on the same sense, though, if there was a call that had come in and my callers are laughing at a situation, I would laugh with them sometimes,
Mhm.
because what else are you going to do? You're going to relate to them. You're going to be human, right?
Right. I had a guy call in the other day, and he was getting beat up by his aunt. He was probably like a 20-year-old kid or something. And his
Yeah.
aunt was a little bit older, and she'd been strung out on meth for a week. And I was like, well, what has she done? What has she done? And he's like, I don't know. She just like hit me, and she's talking like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, I said, wow, that's terrifying. And he goes, yeah, try being the one she's chasing. And I was like, oh my gosh, we need to get this man help immediately.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So in situations like that as well, you, it's and I look at the way you have your headphones, you've got the mouthpiece here.
Yeah.
I would sometimes hold on to it, or I would move it up and
Mm-hmm.
turn my head to kind of chuckle a little bit, because I'm like, is this real life? Like, is this really going on right now?
Yeah, exactly. Ay, ay,
Oh
ay.
man. So you take, I don't think I asked this question already, but how many hours do you work? Is it 12 hours a day or is it 8 hours
Yeah,
per
we
shift? I
work.
mean,
Yeah, we work 12. So we're on the pitman.
12s.
We have 8 full-time dispatchers, and we're on the pitman. So it's a 2-week rotating. It ends up being 15 days off a month, which I think is very important
Mhm.
in the line of work that we do, to have mental days, to be completely away from work and do what you got to do chore wise, exercise, mental health stuff, whatever your hobbies are, grocery shopping, cleaning, appointments. So when we're fully staffed, that's a great idea. When we're not fully staffed, we're stuck working 18s and overtime. But
Yeah, and that makes it makes an already tough job even more tough, right? And it
right.
brings even more stress and strain on the family when you're coming home, because even if you want to leave it at work, sometimes it creeps out. And when it creeps out, it's funny in a way that if you want to leave it at work, you can, but it comes with you in the sense that you're just silent at
Hmm.
home, and that makes a difference as well, because you're in your head, I say this speaking from experience, like for myself. In my head, I was leaving it there, it wasn't following me, and everything was fine at home. But what it turned out was I wasn't talking,
Hmm.
and I was just kind of silent, and I was also being kind of a dick. Kind of
Maybe just
just
a little.
yeah, just yeah, a little bit. And it wasn't until I started talking more about it, and that was therapeutic for me, which was weird. I was like, oh, we can talk about these things and I feel a little better.
Yeah.
It was so stupid at the time, when I was going through it, because all I had to do was really look in the mirror. It was taking that first step, looking at myself to be able to figure out, hey, it's you. Like me, it's me. Like, oh, I'm technically still bringing this home because I'm not
Yes.
really talking about it and stuff. But yeah, having, like you were saying, with two people on and being short staff, like probably a lot of places are right now,
Hmm.
there's that much overtime. And I think an 18-hour shift for myself was the longest I've ever worked.
Me too.
And that was crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, see, we have a really small county. We have about,
Mhm,
our population's like 20,000 around there. And we have like 550 square miles to our county. And
mhm,
all we have is right in the center is a big lake. So we have a lot of lake traffic and stuff like that. But we don't have any major cities like Topeka, Kansas City, Lawrence that are dealing with stabbings and shootings and
mhm.
murders and, all that stuff all day long. So one of my favorite things to tell our newbies when they're in training is that we're not we're not paid to be busy. We're paid to kick ass when we are. And because there's a lot of downtime some days. We just
Mhm.
sit there, paint our toenails, eat, watch TV. So,
Right, because you're waiting for stuff to come in, and,
yeah.
the same thing was with us where, there were some times where there would actually be a few hours where there was nothing coming in. Maybe
Mhm.
an alarm call, maybe some traffic stops, but man, there were not, a lot of calls coming, especially wintertime. If it's like blizzard-like weather outside and people are actually paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing and
Mhm.
just staying home and not driving because it's too dangerous, we would go 4 hours sometimes just like, "All right, you guys wanna play Scrabble? 'Cause there's there's nothing else going on." And
Yeah.
those times, that was good for our mental health as well. But as you talk about having a big old lake smack in the middle of the county there, this is like an all sport lake type thing. I can just imagine the amount of calls that you end up getting for that.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of drunks and fighting and noise disturbances and blah blah blah.
Right, and for a lot of people who don't, they don't know more about public safety or anything, or would even think about any lake incidents. It's
Mhm.
only, of course, when you see it in the news where, someone drowned or this or that happened. But, what people don't know, you got Marine Patrol and they're out there doing things and they're pulling people over on the lake too.
Right.
and and issuing tickets and alcohol warnings and all this other stuff. But man, when you have those boat complaints come in, whether it be a crash, a boat that's starting to sink, or
Mhm.
someone that they just pulled out of the water, or someone that they can't find that's been missing, oh my God, then the level just goes up
Yep.
again.
Yep, it sure does.
So, how long were you working in dispatch before you decided to become a CTO, a certified training officer? And and maybe actually a little bit before that, with your training and everything that went through, a lot of people that I've spoken to who've become CTOs, there was either a trainer that trained them so well or that they really admired, or that made them want to do the same thing to help that next generation coming in, or there was, may have been something that happened to them where they wanted to make a change and they wanted to be part of that change for training for any of those that were coming in. What was it like for you? What helped you make that decision to move towards that position?
Okay. Well, it was definitely me who wanted to change.
Mhm.
Of course, I didn't give myself a promotion, so obviously, the director at the time saw something in me and lifted me up to give me some leverage to change a few things, enhance a few things, send me off to other trainings. She made it to where I was heavily involved in APCO, our state chapter, and I'd go to both conferences every year for 7 years straight, I think, and go back with the training, share with everyone. Um, so that's kind of where it all started, and that was about 6 years ago.
Mhm.
And I took the APCO course to become the certified training officer. That's the course I made. And now I just every 2 years recertify for that. Yeah. So when I first started, one of my major things was suicidal calls.
Mhm.
So when you work in a department where you have where you do all three, what I mean, fire, EMS, and police, you don't send fire to a suicidal subject because they're volunteer firefighters. They don't need to be involved in any of that. Where I come from, some of them are medically certified, but ours are not.
Mhm.
So one of my major calls in the beginning was we'll call him Mr. Johnson. He called 911 and he said, "I want to kill myself." And I was like, "Oh shit." Well, in our protocol books and stuff, they talk about suicidal calls and how to handle them, what questions to ask, but it doesn't really focus on first party callers. It's like second party. My mom wants to kill herself, or I just found
Right.
my brother hanging, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I got really stuck on verbiage and what to say, what was the right thing to say, how to say it. If I say it, is it going to make him do it? And then so I jumped right into the pro QA end of things. And if you have pro QA, then you understand that it's like very scripted, which it is scripted.
Mhm.
And I just didn't feel like I was connecting with him like I wanted to. It was all vague, and I wasn't building a rapport like I wanted to.
Right. Almost like robotic a little
Yeah,
bit.
it was awful. And he took his life that day with me on the phone. I heard the gunshot go off. He shot himself in the stomach. And I don't blame myself. I never did blame myself, but I wanted something that I could offer new dispatchers and the ones that were there, a book to grab off the shelf real quick that's just filled with questions that you can ask to build a rapport, how to build a rapport, and all that. So that's kind of where the whole training thing for me kind of took off, because I made this book on my own at work during my time there, and then I presented it to the director. And yeah, and then APCO came around and I said, "Hey, I think I can teach a class on maybe this," and it was a pretty big hit.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's amazing right there. And that's why and that's why I was asking as well, because there have been a couple people where one specifically, going through training, I think this was maybe the late 70s, early 80s or something, when they were going through training, and that training, um they were treated rather poorly. And it was like, it was pretty hardcore. I can't even think of some of the stuff, but the way she was talking about it, I thought, damn, like that's pretty harsh. But for her, she ended up moving up and then eventually, doing her own like training thing. But that was one of those reasons, was because there was a different way, to do it, a better way, and a way to not, really put down the person you're trying to train. So that was some of their motivation and everything. So then, here with you, you had this call, and you're going through, protocol that is really robotic, like you're saying, it's all listed, it's scripted. But with suicidal callers, and I say this as well because I had a trainer who I tried to mimic every time I spoke to a suicidal caller. He would he would get their all the pertinent information while they're waiting for help to get there. He would start talking to them, and would just be a fucking human, and would just start
Exactly.
saying, what kind of music are you into, or what kind of, and would learn this, and would just start talking to the person, whoever they are, and they would have this whole side conversation, had nothing to do with the suicidal stuff that was going on, but they were connecting, and help got there. And I, myself, got a chance to apply that. And so with you, like you're saying, you had this incident, and it made you wanted to change something, and change something for the better.
Right. Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
they were open to it. The management was pretty open to it at the time, and yeah, it worked out a little bit. I don't think a whole lot of people really grab it off the shelf now, but
Mhm.
at least it's utilized in training and they have an idea of, you know, what to say and It's okay to talk about it. See, me, when I first took that call, I didn't know, is it okay if I ask him if he has a plan, or how long has he been thinking about doing this? How can we keep you safe today? Have you gone through this before? How'd you do it? How'd you get through it?
Hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and so in thinking back to that call, like how much, because I'm sure, just talking about it, and I'm the same way in the sense with certain calls, it's like it happened yesterday.
Mhm.
It's like it's still fresh, it's there. Do you remember the type of stress you were under at all while you're taking this call? Because like you said, you're taking this call, you're going through that script, but also all at the same time in your head, you're also thinking, can I ask this? If
Mhm.
I say this, am I gonna, set him off?
Right.
Or am I gonna hear something? You're all of that is going on. What was that like in that moment?
It was chaos. I mean, it's like you have three different brains trying to work together on something. You're trying to listen to him, you're trying to follow your protocol, you're trying to think of different ways to build a rapport, you're trying to answer radio traffic, listen to your trainer on what they suggest to do. It was
Mhm.
just nuts. It was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy moment. And then for him to actually follow through with it was like, just everyone just fell silent. All that chaos that was just in your ear and trying to fix it. We got this emergency going on, and then all of a sudden he did it, and then it was just silent. It was like, fuck.
Man.
Yeah.
And so then with your trainer there, again, there's only a few of you there. You move on to the next one?
Yep.
Damn. And that's another thing. That's another thing that that people don't uh they don't get or don't understand, is the fact that when you only have a few people there, there's only so much that can be done.
Right.
You can't just go off the floor, because that 911 call, that emergency isn't the only emergency that's going on, because so much more end up coming in. I remember actually telling a few callers, because they were pissed off at me that I was putting them on hold, and they would say, "This is 911. Why are you putting me on hold?" And I would say, with all due respect, your 911 call, your emergency isn't the only emergency that's coming in. There are several more that are coming in, because there are always calls coming in. And being real with with callers like that, not rude, not I wasn't being a dick or anything. I was just telling
Yeah.
them the reality of it.
Right.
They were actually okay with it. Like, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay, no, I get it. I'll be right here," because they knew that help was already coming to them.
Yeah.
So I was able to put them on hold, but sometimes just
Yeah.
people don't understand.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, what the vision of what 911 is displayed on, television and movies and stuff. And it's these huge comm centers where it's so intense and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm saving lives. I'm going to leave my console and go chase down the bad guy. That's not even
Right.
how it works.
Yeah.
It's totally just two people kicking it, figuring out what they're going to have for lunch, and trying to give CPR instructions 2 minutes later to a 90-year-old woman who just lost her husband, and then doing your best to have the 90-year-old try and do chest compressions. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah,
And then
because
you hang up the phone and you're like, wow, fuck, that sucked. And then you take a bite of your mac and cheese. I don't,
yeah, that's been sitting there for a couple hours probably,
right. Because
because
it's cold and disgusting and clumpy. And
right. And then, I think I remember microwaving something 4 times, and I still didn't get to eat it. By that time, it was
gross.
probably yeah, by that time, it was alive, because I had
Ew.
thrown so much radiation into it. I'm sure I was like, "Hey, are you gonna eat me or what?"
How funny.
Oh, man. Yeah, but yeah, that's the part that
It is.
you've got all this media and everything, and you're right. You see these shows and you're like, dang, look at that is awesome. But from us seeing it, we're like,
It
no,
is nothing like
that's not,
that.
yeah, that's
Stop.
nothing like that.
Quit
it's
playing.
it's I always laugh when there is an alarm commercial that comes on. And I remember my son saying, "Why do you laugh at these?" Because do they just are they is it not reality? And then I would say, "Look, the alarm company, yes, probably reaches um, police immediately. But if we don't have someone to send, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And he goes,
Exactly.
wait, what? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, so are you saying people are paying for nothing? I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're paying for nothing. I'm just saying that it might happen that fast, but if there's nobody there,
Mhm.
the people still have to wait. So hopefully you have some you know how to fight, or you have a weapon if the person is in the house, or you're hiding and you're on the phone with us so that we can, you know, get somebody out there
Right.
and have all this going on. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, because this is not a depiction of what I thought it was. Look, no, buddy, it's not.
Yeah. See, we live in our county is rural community. So we have two ambulances, one on each side of the county, split by the lake.
Mhm.
And what people don't understand is if you're way down in the southwest part of the corner of the county, it's going to take a little bit for anyone to get to you, especially if we don't have firefighters who are available, because every single one of our firefighters are volunteer. So if they're at work, you're going to be waiting on the phone with me for about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah. That's the other thing as well, is so for our county, when I was working still, you know, we would have, I think, maybe 4 or 5 deputies, and then a couple troopers that would help out on each side. But you know, sometimes I'd be on the phone with someone and I'd have to say, you know, sir or ma'am or whichever, the officer's not just around the corner waiting for something to happen. They're coming from a few townships away.
Yeah.
And then when you're on there with them, especially if, you know, it's, you know, kind of a domestic call, you're trying to keep them all separated and stuff. And then once you've gotten through all of the information, you have to think of other things, you know, other questions or whatever to continue the conversation going, to keep that person calm. Because just in normal conversation, when you're talking to somebody and you're going and going, you know, everything is calm and stuff. But once you stop, it gets awkward, right?
Right.
And you're like, all right, so what what now? It's like, what was that, a microwave I heard in the background? What are you eating? So and you don't want the caller to, you know, feel awkward either, because they're calling with an emergency. And they,
Mhm.
you know, some of them, especially if you know them. I worked in the county that I grew up in. Some people I knew. And
Mhm.
then it's kind of embarrassing for them if they know who I am, because
Mhm.
now I know their business. So that adds a whole other layer to it.
Oh yeah. Whole nother layer.
Oh, so looking looking at back at this call that we were talking about, is that, would you say that's one of the ones that really stick with you?
The Mr. Johnson one, yes.
Mhm.
I've had a few. I had a quadruple fatality accident one time that involved a newborn baby that had died in it. It was actually on Father's Day. A family of 4 was coming home from the zoo in Topeka, and just a fight. They were traveling one way, another vehicle lost control and veered into their traffic. It was a head-on collision. The vehicle caught fire, and it was one of those, like, I mentioned that silence thing again.
Mhm.
This was about 15 minutes before the end of my shift, and the dad had melted to the seat. The newborn was deceased. The mom was thrown from the vehicle and DOA. There were 2 little girls that were pulled out by witnesses and saved, who are now being raised by their grandparents, I've heard. And of course, the man of the other truck had died instantly too. But it was one of those, just completely chaotic, and you're really not digesting all that just took place. And then I clocked out of everything. I gave all the shit show over to my partner, and I walked outside, and it was only birds chirping. It was a beautiful sunny day, Father's Day, birds chirping, and I fucking broke down. I just bawled there in the parking lot for probably 10 minutes, because
Wow.
it was just the amount of, I don't know, it's just from going from the crazy chaos to dead silence. And it's like, what the fuck? How do I do this day in and day out? And and then your empathy and all that starts to kick in, that you couldn't show in dealing with radio traffic and everything else, because you just don't have time to
Yeah.
really understand what the hell just happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I you're giving I got goosebumps.
I know, me too.
I'm thinking
Me
about
too.
this because it takes me back to a couple times where, I had some shit days, and right at the end of the shift and leaving and having a similar experience like you, and thinking, oh man, I remember going home with my window down in silence, and looking around and thinking, how am I going? I'm supposed to be, enjoying this, but I feel almost guilty a little bit enjoying this amazing day when I know that someone just had this happen to them and their
Yeah.
family is going through some tragedy. And I remember going home and holding my son, real tight, and him being like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like, I'm sorry. It's just, what's wrong? And I'm like, I it was a hard day at work is all. And
Yeah. You know
it's
what's
it's crazy.
crazy? Yeah, it is. So that same day I drove home and I had a photo shoot. I'm a photographer on the side.
Mhm.
I had a photo shoot that night and I did not want to do it. I was just worn out. But it was one of my favorite little girls to shoot. She's the cutest little blondie. And so I set her up there in my meadow. And I'm not shitting you. A beautiful fawn doe comes out of the meadow, and the doe is in the background in every single shot. What are the odds of that?
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, this was like full circle. Like it was like one of those just weird nostalgic moments of like, okay, I
Everything
can get through this.
everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really weird. Really
Oh.
weird fucking day. I'll never forget it.
See, I think though that's one of those good things is whatever explanation it was, and just hearing you talk, like I can almost feel it, like, there was some weight that was lifted off, seeing
Mhm.
that and be able to get through it and all, whatever it was,
Yeah.
you were
Something
able to
so
you were able to
beautiful
get
at
through.
the end
Yeah.
of such a really dark, disgusting day, it ended with something unmatchable as far as beauty. So it just evened it out, I guess, for me.
I wanna go back really quick to the call that you took where you ended up creating this book with these questions. And I just want to ask this really quick. How important do you think it is to not so much learn, but to, I mean, really to build that rapport with your callers when they're going through a lot of this, whether it be a suicidal caller or it be a medical or anything like that? How important is it, and how do you think that kind of impacts the call when you're taking it?
I think being a 911 dispatcher, the more confidence and sincerity and sympathy that you have in your voice, always the better your phone call is going to be. We have the tendency, because it's our everyday, that we forget that those people are having their worst day and they're not used to this. We are used to this. And so it's always important to remember that those people are going through a really bad time. As far as building a rapport, it's huge with really any caller, but especially the suicidal ones, because as a 911 dispatcher, we are so limited to what help we personally can do. Yes, I can send you help and I can sit here on the phone with you, but after help gets there, I'm done. And so my job is, how can I keep you safe or alive or calm until help can get there? And then really you just focus on that, whatever, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, you're on the phone with them, to really focus on their needs. And like you said, just talk to them like they're humans, like they're going through something pretty bad right now.
Mhm.
It's huge to me, building the rapport.
It's it's a big thing, and it's amazing, that we're able to make these connections, and the fact that when people call in, they're putting so much trust in a voice, and depending on just the tone that we have,
Hmm.
it's crazy, right? It can change the call and
Oh yeah.
how someone responds. Now there are also calls that are not as they're not as deep. There's some of the funnier ones that come in, and I there's and sometimes, you I, I say this because some of the calls I remember taking, and I would like we talked earlier, I would say, I would, sometimes the emotion would come out, sometimes the laughter would come out. And sometimes when these calls are coming in and the caller is laughing, you want to laugh with them, but then you're like, I can't laugh. But then sometimes it slips out and all.
Yep.
I had someone call in once where they were, it was a couple, it was a husband and wife who were property owners of this apartment complex, and it's New Year's Day, okay, and they're going to go check to make sure that their complex, didn't get destroyed from parties from the night before for the New Year, and they found a guy he was passed out drunk in one of their laundry areas on one of the floors, and the wife is just laughing hysterically. She's the one who's on the phone with me, and I can hear the husband in the background going, stop, like, you need to stop. and I'm like, ma'am, I need you to tell me what's going on with the gentleman that's there. Like, you checked on him, you made sure that he doesn't need medical attention. And she goes, he doesn't look like he's hurt. He's just passed out in the laundry area, and he's sleeping, and he was moving around and stuff, but he's got to be passed out drunk. There are beer bottles all around him, and he's naked. And I said, oh, wait, what? She goes, he's naked, and there's stuff all over the place. And I said, what do you mean there's stuff all over the place?
Oh no,
and
don't.
The husband goes, don't say it. And she's just laughing. And yeah, he had vomited, I guess, and also gone to the bathroom.
Okay, I knew that was coming. This is
Yeah.
what we call getting literally shit-faced.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And she
Wow, that's
is
drunk.
she is laughing so hard, and I couldn't help but laugh as well and just say, okay, we're
I
gonna
can
send somebody
smell
over
this
there.
story. I can smell this story right now,
Oh.
and I'm my throat's closing.
Yeah, like beef. It was probably bad.
Oh
And-
God, it was so bad.
and
Ugh.
yeah, the husband just kept saying, you guys, you need to stop, and she's like, it's fine, the person's fine. Well, so I end up sending an officer out, but I also I asked them, I said, do you want me to send medical to stand by just in case? And they're like, yeah, go ahead and send someone out. They went out priority 3, lowest priority, no lights and sirens.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, he was fine. He was just passed out, and he didn't even realize that he didn't have clothes on. And he got his clothes. I think he was trying to wash them or something and passed out waiting for him, something like that. This was years and years ago, but that was one of those things where, sometimes someone is calling and they're telling you a story, on the lighter side of dispatch, and sometimes you just got to laugh with the caller, and that kind of, in a weird way, helps build that rapport as well.
It does. It really does. Yes.
Man, this job is something else.
It is. It's all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. There are also like names, and stuff that you hear in when calls come in, and you just think, man, why? Like, why do you have that first and last name? Like, it's weird. Like, I remember a name that kind of sounded like Brown Eye. And they ended up sending it in, and I just remember having to explain to someone, because I was telling this story, and I remember having to explain to one of the trainees. They're like, why are you guys laughing? Like, what does that mean? And I was like, and then I explained it, and they're like, oh my God.
I had one similar to that. I was working with
Mhm.
my partner, and we were trying to locate a phone number for someone that was missing. And I'll change up the name a little bit just for purposes of this, but
Yeah.
he basically called information, and it's automated, right? So the lady is like, please, state the name. And he goes, Erin Shantz. And she said, I'm sorry, I didn't copy that. Can you repeat that? And he goes, Erin Shantz.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, I found erection. Is that correct? And he went, no. We listened to that recording probably 38 times that night and just laughed hysterically. It was
Oh
so funny.
man. See, and those are some of the things that happen in dispatch that break up the chaos that is dispatch, right?
Yes.
And yeah, stuff like that. Also, with I remember being with a trainee. We were so short staffed, everybody became a CTO. We weren't actually CTOs, they were just telling us you're a CTO now. I'm
Yeah,
like,
we
oh,
we've been
okay.
there before.
Yeah. So I remember telling her, like, when you hang up the phone, when you get off the phone with somebody, if you have anything else to say, and I think she had said something to someone over on the other side of the room, and I said, hang up the phone. And she's like, What?" And I said, hang up the phone. And she hung up the phone, and I said, once the person hangs up, you need to hang up the phone right away, because what you said to the person on the other side of the room, I mean, someone could have heard that and would think you were talking to the caller. And she goes, it doesn't record when they're hung up. And I said, lift the phone. So she lifted the phone, and she hung it up, and I said, okay, hold on a minute. I lifted the phone and I said, it's recording right now. And then I hung up, and she goes, no way. And I played
Uh-huh.
the playback, and there's my voice. And she goes, it's hot all the time. And I said, it's hot.
Yep.
As soon as you pick up the phone, it's hot. I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
so
Oh, yeah. I've gotten better at watching my P's and Q's on what I say after someone hangs up. But I remember back when the court would ask for recordings of my
Mhm.
calls, and my bosses would just go, oh, God. Because I did a lot of shit talking.
yeah, you
That's how you
hang up.
get through it, though.
Yeah. Yeah,
Doesn't mean
exactly.
it doesn't mean I mean it. I'm just releasing
Right.
what's up here with no filter, and it comes out here.
Yeah, exactly. I remember a couple times getting off a call and just being like, holy shit, I can't believe that. And then thinking, oh, I didn't hang up on time. So someone's going to hear me say, holy shit, I can't believe that,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it comes out, you can't believe it. Like I said, 911 is you can't predict it.
Right.
You might be able to, or like I said before, a lot of the same incidents, but the situations never the same.
Exactly.
And when you think you've heard the most outrageous thing, something else happens. The other
Right.
outrageous thing, it says, hold my beer. And then it happens.
Yes.
And
So true.
it's just it's craziness. But it's the job that we're in, that we do, is the job that you do. And I thank you so much for being
Thank
on and
you.
sharing this, your stories and what you've learned. As we go into the wrap up of this episode, just kind of thinking of everything, when you think back on your experience, what would you say is something that you're, I guess, most grateful for? Whether it be something that you learned, someone that you worked with, or calls that you've taken. What is something that you're, most grateful for in this profession?
Um, well, I'm grateful for where I'm at, in a position where I'm able to give to those who I work with, giving me some leverage. The management has really let me embrace that and change a few things, and that's really what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the fact that I have enough experience now that I'm a really good dispatcher. And that's, it may sound like bragging to some, but when you reach a certain point in your career where you know you can answer any phone call, any situation, and you can rock it from start to finish, then you've mastered that in your career, I think, as a 911 dispatcher. Yes, situations are different, but it's just a combination of everything, the disassociation, the coping, the humor, the everything put into one. And when you up here, your fight or flight kicks in, you know exactly what to do, and the confidence really shows in that. So I appreciate sticking with it and not giving up when I have hit so many burnouts throughout my career and have wanted to just walk away and go back to gas station work, or waitressing or stripping. No, just kidding. I've never thought about that. Just kidding.
That's funny.
I can dance, but I'm chunky.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, I absolutely love the people I work with today. We haven't always had a great crew, but over the years, we have filtered out some bad seeds. The bad seeds have filtered out themselves. And today, I can honestly say that I love every single one of my coworkers, and I would do anything for them. And I try my best, as I kind of took the leadership on the morale around there too. So I do my best to keep everyone happy and heard and understood and feel important. And I hope they feel that way. At least I think they do. So,
Awesome.
yes.
Thank you so much for being on this.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. This was amazing.
Thank you.
So I will be right back here with you. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments or questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is going to be @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And if you're looking for any bonus content, you can check us out. And this is going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast. This can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And then for the audio version of this, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.